We sometimes overuse the word unprecedented, but this is fairly unprecedented, isn't it?
Oh, this is truly jaw-dropping, truly extraordinary. And yet, given the slew of allegations that there have been, in some ways should be unsurprising. But, you know, sentences you would never think you would ever say. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, formerly His Royal Highness Prince, you know, the Prince Andrew, who also the Duke of York, is under arrest and
in police custody.
In police custody, and you just think, I'm never ever going to be able to. I'll never say that out loud. And here we are, and the statement from the King. And we've talked, Sheila, over the past few days about, you know, the age of deference and whether people have leant over too much towards. This is a statement from the King that says that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is just like any other citizen. There is no, you know, the word impunity gets used a lot. There is no impunity anymore. It's the law is going to take its course. He is innocent until proven guilty. But I think an awful lot of people would have probably imagined it would never have come to this, that there would have been something done. I was speaking to people earlier in the week who were saying to me, you know what, I'm hearing that he might get arrested. Now, I've seen a lot of reporting saying that the King was not informed directly when this arrest was going to take place. Yeah. But I'm sure there was an awareness that this was possible. And even this morning, you know, I got a message saying, you know, police are at Sandringham. I thought, well, I'm sure it's just inquiries, as Jenny Bond was saying, because arrest, you know, you are under caution. You are arrested and you are read your rights.
You're arrested on suspicion of something. And police have to have reason for suspicion.
Exactly. It's not just helping a police with their inquiries. It's an arrest, which presumably they may have done a good deal of work before this has happened. And whilst I'm sure it's absolutely true that the King didn't know about the precise timing of any of it, you can imagine the conversations that have gone on between Buckingham Palace, the various police forces, number 10 Downing Street, the Cabinet Office, because this does take us, this takes the royal family
into new territory
that they've never been in before.
It does, and I think, you know, I don't want to overparse the statement of the King, but I think comparing it to that one from the late Queen Elizabeth, in which she said the word family, I think 9 times, because she wanted the warmth that she still felt, or wanted us to think she felt, for Meghan and Harry to be evident. I know these are very different stories, but this statement today from the King is entirely the opposite. The word family appears once at the end, and he does not even use the word brother about his brother.
I think the levels of exasperation
and distancing
that has been felt by the royal family towards Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is intense, and that for whatever reason that, you know, the statement that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor originally put out about the victims, and, you know, the King then puts out another statement which is a lot firmer. I think that everything has been heading in this direction. But I do think that our royal family is in, you know, I'm trying to think in my lifetime, has there been anything like this for the royal family? And the answer is no.
No, there hasn't.
The death of Diana was nothing. The death of Diana was about public opinion and whether the Queen had been sensitive enough to the kind of collective outpouring of grief by the British people. It was, you know, it was PR problem. It wasn't this. This is the abdication crisis in terms of...
Writ large.
Writ large. I mean, arrested, you know... On suspicion,
on his birthday,
on his 66th birthday.
Point, really, but
yeah,
still.
You know, is extraordinary and takes the family into. And I think that there is another point in all of this. And I interviewed Andrew Lowney, who wrote the biography of Andrew. And one of the things that I think was very striking for me reading the book, because I thought this is a legal minefield.
It's called Entitled, isn't it?
Yeah,
in case
Entitled. And it was the extent to which no one was no one was defending Andrew, but no one was going out of their way to help his investigations into the book. He was blocked repeatedly on freedom of information requests about his work as a trade envoy or about anything else that government departments were saying, oh, don't want to go near it. And so I think some of this does potentially bounce back on the palace about not that they were supporting, but that they weren't doing enough.
My sense of it is that clearly the case today, the arrest today, the investigation on the allegations must be followed through, as the King rightly says in his statement, and we are at pains to say as well. And at the moment, my sense of it is that this isn't yet an existential crisis for the monarchy itself. But I don't think today's arrest and this investigation alone is the end of the heat for what the royal family and the monarchy knew, what paperwork there is that needs to be pored over, looked at by the appropriate authorities. There could still be trouble to come down the line with that, the nature of which, who knows?
Yes, we can't be too speculative.
No.
We're at a very early stage of a legal process now.
I'm not even talking about this case. I'm talking about the sexual allegations against him.
But there are a whole series of questions about, the people that came to Buckingham Palace, and whether people were turning a blind eye to the fact that, people were being signed in. And have they got a record of the names of the people who came in as Andrew's guests, inverted commas? He's denied all wrongdoing on that score, but there are very big questions that need to be answered. And so, something very dramatic has happened today. But we shouldn't see that as the end of it. This is the start of something else. And we don't know
where it will lead.
I
mean, the investigation aside and what happens to him as a result of it in the longer run will leave to one side. But we've already had conversations. I had one with Lewis just the other day about looking at, for example, the former King of Spain, Juan Carlos, and he left he abdicated the throne and then is living in exile in the Middle East. Something akin to that is what people had in mind or have in mind for the former Yorks, isn't it? And yet this arrest and and what potentially flows from it takes us into completely different territory than that kind of speculation.
Yeah, I look, he's as we understand it, he is in a police cell with a mattress and a toilet, and he is waiting to be called up to the interview room. I mean, you just kind of get your head around that. Yeah. The image of that. And
I was thinking as well this morning, because there is a limit to what we can say about the case. I was thinking as well this morning, the British public's, you, me, all of us, our relationship with the monarchy is such an interesting one, I think, because it's social, obviously, it's historic. It's psychological as well, though, isn't it? And it's to do with people's identity, for good or ill, and people either love it or loathe it. This has really tested that relationship. And I don't just mean this arrest. The whole Epstein connection has really tested that relationship, hasn't it? And the King knows it.
No, I remember 5 years ago, people saying, well, when the Queen dies, it is going to be a crisis for the royal family, because she has been the glue that not only has sort of kept the royal family together, the late Queen, but also in a sense kind of been a unifying figure in the nation. And that there was an enormous respect and sense of, she had done a brilliant job. Now, there is a question mark over the money that was paid to settle the case against Virginia Giuffre, and whether the Queen funded it to help her favourite son to the tune of millions of pounds. And, I got a question from my daughter saying, well, hang on, was that taxpayers' money? That was, and you think, well, that's an interesting one.
We don't know for sure.
We don't know for sure whether it was, and does the Queen's private money, well, is that our money or is that purely the royal family's money? And I just think that you've got now a situation where questions that we didn't ask, or very few people asked. There was always been a Republican movement who thought this is just a complete anachronism. And once you start asking questions, well, hang on, why are they treated in this gilded way, a gilded cage, I would argue, that why are these people treated like this? The question, the answers are uncomfortable. And so I do think that we are seeing a change, and particularly if you look at opinion polling data among young people about what their relationship is to the royal family and what they feel its important is to British life.
And, you described there a sort of putative image of Andrew in the in the police cell waiting to be questioned. There are some images that we are going to see for real today, and already have. The police cars at Sandringham, the search going on there in the lodge that he was in there, the cottage he was in there. Windsor, we know there are police there, we think, searching Royal Lodge, the very large white mansion that he used to live in until just weeks ago. And we have the three most senior royals, I would argue, Anne, Princess Royal, Charles and the Queen, at different public events, fronting it out. They know they're going to have to. They can't hide.
I think they're absolutely right to do that as well. Because if there was a sense that they were hiding from all of this and that somehow the royal family
wash over them.
was hunkered down and just waiting for the storm to pass, I think that would have been absurd. And I think, the family firm, business as normal, carries on. The black sheep has been cut adrift. And you can, the statement you read out from the King, which says so little and says so much simultaneously, and is cold as ice.